The low hum of engines filled the cabin as travelers searched for their seats. Overhead bins clicked shut. The smell of coffee drifted from the galley. Near the front of the aircraft sat a young boy in a golden-yellow suit, his shoes polished to a mirror shine, his posture as careful as the folded boarding pass in his pocket. The light from the window turned his cheeks to honey. He pressed a thin folder to his chest, guarding it like treasure. Inside was a single sheet of paper that meant more to him than all the luggage in the cargo hold. Passengers passed by, some curious, some indifferent, yet more than a few let their eyes linger. A boy traveling alone in such formal clothes seemed out of place amid sweatshirts and business suits. When a flight attendant stopped beside him, her professional smile faltered for a moment. Something in her expression tightened, a flicker of uncertainty she didn't fully understand herself. She asked to see his ticket, scanning it twice before nodding. "You're all set," she said quickly, then moved on. The exchange lasted only seconds, but it left behind a residue of doubt. Thin as smoke, yet just as hard to ignore. It was a Monday morning flight from Atlanta to New York. The cabin was filled with the quiet rhythms of routine. Laptops opening, safety belts clicking, the rustle of newspapers. The boy's name was Eli Carter, 11 years old, traveling alone for the first time. The yellow suit had been his mother's idea. "If you shine bright," she'd told him, "the world can't help but notice." She had spent half the night pressing every crease, smoothing every button, her pride and worry woven into each stitch. Eli had wanted to wear something simple, but she insisted on something else. "This isn't just a trip," she'd said. "It's a beginning." In the folder Eli clutched was his invitation to the National Youth Innovation Awards, where his project on recycling plastics into durable shelter tiles would be honored. He could still hear his mom's steady voice listing the travel instructions. Stay polite, stay alert, stay kind. Those words replayed in his mind as the plane rolled toward the runway. The attendant passed again, asking other passengers if they needed anything. Her tone was light, even warm, yet when her gaze touched Eli's row, it cooled by a single degree. He couldn't tell if it was worry or doubt, but he felt it. He kept his shoulders straight and his smile polite, pretending not to notice. As the plane lifted through the clouds, Eli watched the world shrink into patches of color. The sky outside turned into endless white. The gentle rumble of the engines soothed him at first, then slowly became background noise for a storm of thoughts. He thought of the small classroom where his idea had started, the bottle caps he'd melted into samples, the faces of neighbors who had helped him test the tiles. Then, turbulence struck. The drink on his tray slid and tipped, splattering soda across the napkin. He fumbled to catch it, whispering a quiet, "Sorry." The attendant hurried down the aisle, steadied herself against a seat, and with a weary sigh replaced his napkin. "Careful next time," she said, more habit than scold, but the words stung anyway. A man across the aisle handed Eli a spare tissue with a small smile. "Happens to all of us," he said kindly. Eli nodded, though his throat had tightened. The kindness of a stranger felt heavier than it should, like a reminder that gentleness was a choice. Minutes passed. The hum of the engines leveled out, but inside Eli the air still trembled. Why did he feel like he had to prove something? He stared at his reflection in the window, seeing both the boy his mother believed in and the doubt that sometimes shadowed him. Then the captain's voice crackled through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin our descent, we'd like to recognize one of our passengers, Eli Carter, recipient of this year's National Youth Innovation Award. Congratulations, young man." For a moment, the entire cabin seemed to pause. The silence that followed was soft but charged. Heads turned, and the boy in the yellow suit froze, unsure what to do. Then the man with the tissue began to clap, joined by the woman across the aisle, then another and another. Applause rippled through the rows like sunlight breaking through clouds. The folder slipped from Eli's lap, the certificate sliding halfway out. Its gold seal caught the light. The attendant stood a few steps away, tray in hand, her expression changing from surprise to realization. She looked as if she wanted to say something but couldn't yet find the words. When the wheels finally touched the runway, the plane rolled to a gentle stop. The air inside felt different, lighter somehow. People began collecting their bags, but their glances toward Eli carried warmth instead of curiosity. A few offered quick congratulations. One woman patted his shoulder. The attendant waited near the exit. Her posture was straighter than before, but her eyes held a quiet humility. When Eli reached her, she leaned down slightly. "Have a wonderful trip, young man," she said softly. Eli smiled, steady and kind. "I already am," he replied. Then he lifted his folder and stepped into the sunlight, spilling through the open cabin door. The brightness swallowed him like a promise. Outside the terminal, the morning air smelled of jet fuel and new beginnings. Eli walked with his small suitcase rolling behind him, feeling the weight of both the paper in his folder and the invisible lessons of the flight. He realized that sometimes people don't mean harm. They don't see clearly yet, and sometimes it takes only one small moment to open their eyes. Later that week, at the award ceremony, Eli stood on a stage surrounded by banners and cameras. The metal around his neck gleamed under the lights. When he spoke, his voice was calm but carried far. "Innovation," he said, "isn't just about inventing things. It's about seeing problems differently, and that includes the way we see each other." He didn't mention the flight, but a few in the audience could feel that some unseen story gave his words their weight. Meanwhile, the flight attendant, her name was Marissa, couldn't forget the boy in the yellow suit. The applause from that moment echoed in her mind for days. She replayed every second, her hesitation, her assumptions, the grace with which he had responded. Eventually, she signed up for a volunteer program helping first-time young travelers. "I just want to make sure they feel welcome," she told her supervisor. Months later, Eli received an envelope with her name on it. Inside was a handwritten note. "Thank you for teaching me what real vision looks like. Some lessons come at 30,000 feet, but they last forever." He placed the note inside the same folder that had carried his certificate. The paper had begun to wrinkle at the edges from being opened so many times, but he liked it that way. It felt lived in, like proof of both achievement and growth. The story of the boy in the yellow suit spread quietly online. A photo taken by a passenger, captioned, "Kindness has altitude." It gathered thousands of shares, not because it pointed fingers, but because it reminded people that empathy is possible anywhere, even in the narrow aisles of an airplane. And so, somewhere between departure and arrival, between assumption and understanding, that flight became more than a trip. It became a mirror for everyone who heard about it, a reflection of how easily we can overlook someone's light and how powerful it is when we finally see it. Eli still travels often. Each time, when the engines start to roar and the plane rises through layers of cloud, he looks out the window and smiles. The sky, he's learned, doesn't judge who climbs it. It simply opens to anyone willing to rise.